Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we're going to do a reflection on a verse from the Quran from Surah 2, verse 155 and 156. And I'm going to use the Pickthall translation. And it says, "And surely we shall try you with something of fear and hunger, and loss of wealth and lives and crops. But give glad tidings to the steadfast, who say, when a misfortune strikes them, surely we belong to Allah, and surely we are returning to Him." This verse is well known and speaks of God testing us with various tests and then seeing how we respond, what we do with those tests, and so on. And I want to suggest that even though this verse has been used to have a harsh interpretation on things that people go through. So for example, if something bad happens to you, people say, well, you're being tested. And, if you have an accident, people say, oh, you're being tested. Or you fail at something and people say, oh, you're being tested. And, they make it sound like, Allah's got, he's like a harsh school teacher. And he's got his stick and, he's going to test you. And, he's going to put you in a difficult situation. And then he's going to see, oh, are you going to behave properly? No? Then, whack, take that. Are you going to behave properly? No? Whack, take that. That's not really how I think things are set up. Allah is vast. He is not a harsh school teacher. And for us to reduce that vastness to that of our experience with harsh school teachers is, we can do better. And so we have to try to understand, well, what is it? What does it mean that God tests us? That God puts us through things in order to test us? And I like to think of it more like a gymnasium, okay? There is a vast gym. Imagine a vast gym. And when you go inside the gym, there is a basketball court, there is a track field, there are gymnastics areas. There are heavy weights for weight training and powerlifting and all that. There are people doing stretches and other kind of sit-ups, push-ups and chin-ups and all of this. There's a vast gym that is available, and with different sporting and exercise equipment and things like that, all around. And we kind of go into that area and, we say, let's try to do something we didn't do yesterday. If yesterday we lifted, 20-pound weights, let's try to lift 30-pound weights. And in the midst of that, Allah is evaluating how we do with heavier and heavier weights so that He can give us more and more responsibility, right? So the testing of God is not that of a harsh school teacher who has already decided that you're a troublemaker and, he or she is waiting for you to make more mistakes so she can send you to the principal's office. This is more of Allah, seeing if He puts this type of responsibility on you, how are you doing? How do you do? If He puts, larger type of responsibility on you. How are you doing with that? You know? And this idea kind of liberates the notion that misfortune and pain and suffering and failure happen to you personally. You know, that you failed because there's something personally wrong with you. You got sick because there's something personally wrong with you. And that's just not true. That's just not true. If you've been alive on this earth, you notice that everybody gets sick. Everybody fails. Everybody misses the mark. You know, everybody doesn't get what they want. And so we are here in this lush learning environment of the earth, not so much to be tested in this very personal and vindictive and punitive way, but to be evaluated, right? Maybe we need to translate that word test to be evaluation. You know, Allah is checking to see, you know, in the same way that we get evaluated at school with certain things, like, for example, do our kids know their alphabet, right? If they know their alphabet, they can move on to the next level. If they know their grammar, they can move on to the next level. If they can write a 5-paragraph essay, they can move on to the next level, writing, you know, more complex types of essays, writing, thesis and dissertations and things like that. So it's an evaluation to see, can you take on more responsibility in creation as one of Allah's agents? And so this idea of being tested is not personal, it's impersonal. Because when events happen, they happen to a lot of people. They happen to a lot of people. They don't happen to just one person, at one time. So, if you look at the lives of the prophets, they were going through a lot of stuff, right? They were, some of them were getting into difficulties from the very beginning. Look at the prophet Yusuf, right? His brothers threw him in a well, Musa, right, had to grow up in the Pharaoh's house. And as soon as he starts seeing that the Jewish people of Israel, the Israelites and the Jewish people that are being treated as slaves in Egypt are being treated as slaves and they're suffering. And, he tries to stop one of the soldiers and he punches him and he kills him, And so there are trials and tribulations given to the prophets. There are trials and tribulations given to the imams. Imam Ali was, very much had like a lot of enemies, right? And a lot of people wanted to undermine him. And Imam Hussein, we all know what happened to Imam Hussein, and so on. So suffering doesn't happen to people who are, just regular believers and God is testing them. Suffering happens to everybody. If you're on this earth, if you have a physical body, you will go through some suffering. And it won't be personal. It'll be because it's part of being here. It's part of the nature of life here, right? Mushkil, musibat, trouble, it's all a part of being here, and it's not personal. It's not personal because everyone's going through it. Look at Jesus, right? Prophet Isa, alayhi salam. Like, classic example of people persecuting him. What did he do? What did he do? So this is not a cause and effect karma. There's some people in certain circles that say, oh, you're going through all this stuff because you have certain lessons to learn. You're going through this stuff because you're a human being. And if you're going to be on this earth, you're going to go through stuff. That's how it's set up. Everyone's going to go through their stuff. It's not personal. And the other thing people say is, if you're going through some stuff, you must have done something to call that into your life, because it's a cause and effect universe. And yeah, I agree with you. It's a cause and effect universe. But the cause and effect is we are agents in the universe. We push the universe, and the universe pushes back, right? The universe pushes back, and we are here to find out how to creatively and thoughtfully and prayerfully respond to these events. Allah is evaluating, how are you going to respond to these things that are happening to many people, not just happening to you, happening to many people. So if you have a personal crisis, like you are dealing with a disease, you're dealing with poor health, you're dealing with some financial setback, maybe you lost your job, maybe you got laid off, you've been fired, or you invested in a business that didn't work out, and now you're either at zero, or you're underwater, you've lost money on the business, or your marriage is difficult, and there is just conflict and tension between the couple, and maybe you're going through a divorce, maybe you've had that kind of crisis happen, maybe you've lost a parent to illness or something like this. There's all of these different forms of trouble, trial, tribulation, test, and it's happening all the time. You're not alone. There's almost 8 billion people in the world, roughly. We don't know all of them. We don't know everything that's going on with all of them. But if we did, we would see they too have their physical ailments. They too have their financial troubles. They too have their family troubles. They too have parent, loss and things like that. So there's all of this stuff happening, and it's happening all the time, right? And while that's happening, there are people who are experiencing the opposite. They're having success, they're getting married, they're having children, they're having good business, and and so while this kind of layer of disappointment and frustration is happening, this layer of success and satisfaction is also happening. And guess what? The nature of the world says that these two will flip. These two will flip. Who was up will now go down, and who was down will now go up. And it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there's this line in the Bible that says, God causes it to rain on the just and the unjust. God causes it to rain on the just and the unjust. He doesn't say, I'm going to bring down the rain only to the good people, or I'm only going to bring down the rain for the bad people. It's part of nature to rain so that the earth can, keep moving through its cycles and seasons and things like that. And if you're just or unjust, guess what? You're getting rain, and the rain is a blessing. And then sometimes there's no rain, so the crops don't grow. And guess what? The crops don't grow for the just and the unjust. So it's not like good things happen only to good people, or bad things happen only to bad people. There's fortune and misfortune, and good and bad, and light and dark, and positive and negative happening all the time. And we just go round and round in the circle over and over again. And these are our experiences. These are our moments of evaluation. And this is where you can think of it as, these are opportunities to really bring my spiritual tools, spiritual exercises, spiritual practices. So, this is really a time for me to double down on my spiritual path, because when Allah evaluates how I'm doing in the middle of this crisis, I want Him to see and to watch me lean on Him. I want him to feel me leaning on him, right? And so the verse says, right? The verse says, surely we shall evaluate you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and crops, but give glad tidings to the steadfast who say when a misfortune strikes them, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. Surely we belong to Allah, and to Allah is our return. So the evaluation is not, I want to see you fail, and I'm going to make sure you know it and everybody knows it, and you're going to wear a big sign on your head that says failure. No, we're going to be like, nope. Allah is way too bigger than that. Way too bigger than that. He's not a petty little middle manager. Okay, he's not a petty little middle manager. He is a fountain of love. And so he does all of this out of love. And so that's the kind of evaluation. You want to show Allah, yeah, I've got my alphabet down. Let's go to grammar. I've got my grammar down. Boom. Let's go to 5-paragraph essay. I've got my 5-paragraph essay down. Boom. I'm ready to do a research report. Let's research report down. I'm ready to get a, master's thesis under my belt. Down. Boom. Let's go get a PhD. Down. Boom. I'm ready to, I'm ready to keep going. I'm ready to keep going. I'm ready to take on more responsibility because I know that I am a spiritual being in the world, and Allah has given me this lush learning environment to keep learning, to keep growing in my knowledge, in my service, in my remembrance. And so I want to keep going. And yes, there will be evaluations, but they're not personal. They're happening to everybody. They're happening all around the world. And so the idea is that this is a creative playground. It's a sandbox, and we're learning and playing and experimenting and exploring, and we're artists. We're artists of Allah. And we're learning, when this event happens, here's how I'm creatively going to respond to it. When that event happens, here's how I'm creatively going to respond to it. And so Allah is watching that. He's watching that to see and to evaluate how you respond to it. Because if you respond to it in a way that is in alignment with Him, then He gives you bigger responsibility. He lets you serve Him in bigger and deeper ways, right? Because He's training you. He's training you. These tests, these evaluations are part of a natural educational cycle. They're not these punishments or these prejudgments that you're already a bad student, and we're going to see how bad of a student you are. No, that's not Allah. That's not my reading of the Quran. That's not my reading of the words of Prophet Muhammad. That's not my reading of religion and spirituality in general. We're talking about a love that is teaching you all the time. So, we are going to go through a lot of things, and we are going to experience a lot of things, but we are also agents and forces in the world. We can respond. We can push back. We can hold on tight. We can practice patience and perseverance, and we can say, as we lean on Allah, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. And that gives us our spiritual spine and our spiritual foundation and our spiritual center, out of which we interact with the world and we take on the events as they come.